Hello YouTube, I'm Nix. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to cover a story by Rosie Rose. The story is called Why I Stopped Working at the Morgue. Before we begin, please consider liking and subscribing. That's the only way for the YouTube algorithm to notice me. Without further ado, let's dive in. Up until about a year ago, I was a mortician. Many know the morgues are more of a family business, and it is inherited by family members. My situation was no different, but there were a few rules that had to be followed. Rule number 1. No prepping the bodies from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. This rule made it to where there was nobody at the morgue past 11:30 at night. On the few occasions that a person arrived at the morgue at those times, the only person who would prepare them would be my grandmother. Nowadays, some morgues no longer have a night shift, and ours followed that suit except with my grandmother. If someone's needed to be prepped, she'd be the one to do it, no matter the hour of night. Rule number 2. When entering or leaving any room, or even the morgue itself, you're supposed to say hello and goodbye. I never understood this rule, but I never dared to question. Rule number 3. Never forget to wear your family protection amulet. This rule was the most important and stressed rule. These amulets were passed down in my family to any who worked at the morgue. My grandmother always said that they protect us from the unnatural world. While I never really had much belief in the unnatural world, I never went against the rules. My grandmother also stressed I had to believe in the amulet so it's work. For her, I did believe it in a bit. During the time I worked at the morgue, I noticed that I was the only one who ever had stuff happen to them. It was nothing too serious, just a misplacement of an item or my car keys. It never bothered me, and I brushed it off as my family members pulling a prank on me. That was until about 2 weeks before I quit. A person had come in at night past 12 a.m., and my grandmother, who usually prepared them, was in the hospital. No one else who worked there wanted to go, so I did. I know, they sounded highly unprofessional, but everyone in my family stuck to those rules very religiously. I came in and immediately noticed something off about the morgue. It looked the same as it does in the day, but it didn't feel the same. I shivered at the cold that surrounded me and just focused on getting the person prepped. As I worked, I felt something stare me down, but I never saw anything. Things I needed would get misplaced, and I had to go search for them. This made it take longer to get done. By 3 a.m., I had finally finished. I placed the body in the refrigerated mortuary cabinet and got ready to leave. I was walking back to the lobby when the lights shut off. They came back on after about 3 minutes, and the morgue now looked more old and run down. I tried looking out the window, but it was completely black. No sign of the street lamp. It was almost like an alternate version of itself. I felt sick to my stomach and brushed the thought aside as I hurriedly headed for the door. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I kept turning it until I heard the sounds of nails scraping against the wall behind me. I turned around slowly, and there stood a humanoid entity. There wasn't much I could see of it since it was covered in swirling black mist. With it came the smell of death and sulfur. I gagged at the smell. It started walking closer, scraping its nails against the wall. I tried the door again, but it wouldn't budge. Feeling hopeless, I grabbed the amulet and started praying. It laughed. "That won't work. You don't truly believe." Its laugh and voice were awful, like metal being crushed together, and it sounded like multiple people were speaking at once at different octaves. As it passed by the windows, they cracked and shattered, spraying me with the glass. I began to cry as I felt my life was going to end. I held the amulet tighter and prayed harder. It rushed at me and grabbed me. "Like I said, that won't work. You're in my world now." I struggled through the fear and sobs. What do you mean?" "This place had been a portal to hell before it was ever a morgue. Why do you think there were those stupid rules?" It laughed. I had turned completely cold. It raised its clawed hand up and stabbed it into my stomach. I shuddered as I felt the pain burn through my body. I felt my body go limp as I passed out. When I woke, I was where I was previously, but the morgue looked the same as it does in the day. It no longer looked run down and off. There were no signs of that entity, just the shards of glass on the floor. I went to get up, but a sharp pain shot through me. I looked down, and on my stomach were 3 claw marks seared into my skin. My skin was a weird charcoal black color, and it smoldered where the entity had stabbed me. The glass from the windows was embedded into my arms as well. Slight blood trickled from some of the cuts, but they were nothing compared to the nasty, seared black scars on my stomach. I got up and went into the lobby. I checked the clock, and it was 5:01 a.m. I had been out for about 2 hours. I quickly got my car keys and left. When I got home, I first cleaned my seared stomach and wrapped it, and then pulled the embedded glass from my arms. I cleaned the cuts and wrapped them, and went to my room and fell asleep on my bed. After that, I was sick for 2 weeks. When I was sick, I refused to see any of my family members. I don't know how they would react if they knew I had gotten sick after I had gone to the morgue after 12 a.m. My grandmother had recovered, and she was the one who tried to contact me the most. The 3 claw marks were still on my skin. They looked like black burn scars. I could barely sleep at night from the recurring nightmares of that entity. Once I felt better, I visited my grandmother and told her I was quitting. She didn't ask any questions, and it almost seemed like she already knew why. The only thing she said was, "When you're ready, I will listen." I left her house in tears. I'm sure she knew I had an encounter with that entity. Did she ever encounter it? Or did her belief keep her safe? I didn't know the answer, but I'm convinced that the entity was the reasoning for the weird rules at the morgue. About 3 months ago, I told my grandmother what had happened, and she consoled me and placed what she called a protection prayer over me. After everything that happened, I hold a strong belief in the unnatural world, or the unseen world, or whatever you want to call it. I still have night terrors very often and suffer from insomnia due to the night terrors, but I'm getting help with that. Stay safe out there, people, and don't assume that everything is as it appears. That was why I stopped working at the morgue. I don't know much, but I believe setting up shop on a portal to hell might not be the best idea. I would love to hear the grandmother's side. Maybe the morgue itself was keeping the portal closed or dormant in some way. Anyhow, I had a great time covering the story. I hope you liked it as well. Like always, please like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.